משהו לשתות.
Yeah, morning only play for 20 pills.
Hello. היי, אנג'לה, איך טוב לראות אותך. אוי.
Дай мне другую эту камеру, пожалуйста.
Hi.
Hello. מה נשמע? איך אני I miss you. I didn't see you in so many months.
I know. It's such a long time.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello. And Nicole is here too, and Sivan. Oh, hi, Mrs. Wedra as well. Angela. Okay. Where is my phone? I just want to see. I'll be right back. My daughter is calling. Sorry, I'll be right back. Yes, he's calling.
Hi.
Esther is hungry. Why does it take so long to go, Sheikh? I left the class in the middle. Esther, Remy is coming.
Okay.
You're back already?
No, not yet.
No, I'm not on the phone.
I'll just go.
You're not clear, yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, go through the garage. So you want have to bypass.
Okay.
Or you can go, is the front door bypassed?
Front door?
Huh?
Yeah, but I'm not passing there.
Look, should go to the garage or something. Okay.
Call from Susie Bill.
Hi, Susie. I know I'm on it already.
Hello.
You get on. It's on. It's going on already. Bye. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, Rebbetzin. Hello,
Hi,
family.
Hilda.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. We'll have some more people soon. I want to say a big mazel tov to, if I'm allowed, to Hilda. A very special milestone.
To Hilda who?
Hilda Smith and Lenny, and the
Yeah,
Hebrew
what?
date was 2 days ago.
The what?
And
First
we're
of Tammuz.
celebrating Kinahora their 50th. And I remember, Hilda, when you were celebrating your 30th, 20 years ago, all your friends got together and they donated that cover for the Torah at Chabad house. And I remember thinking, boy, somebody is married for 30 years. At the time, we were married 14 years.
And now it's
Then
at
we
what?
celebrated our 34th, and I said, that's so little. That's not a lot, but many more years, right? All of us, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, now, Bim soll sein gesund.
Thank you.
Nice.
Ashayim Dan.
Hilda,
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 all
Mazel
brachas.
Tov. You look so, oh my God.
Ashayim Dan.
Hi, Gina.
Oh, hi, everybody.
Hilda,
Hello.
Hello,
Hilda,
hello.
I
So
got
nice.
beautiful cards for you, Hilda.
I don't know why my sound isn't up. I'm trying to get the sound up. I don't know.
Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Elise.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Marina. I know some of us are hiding, but it's okay.
I'm just gonna get my hands. I'm gonna hide.
No, you don't have to hide. You all look so beautiful. We're just women here. That's the nice thing, right? Who cares how we look?
Hello. I love your beautiful picture. Hi, Eugenia.
Thank you. You know,
Hello, Jennifer.
it,
How are you?
I think it was a mistake that it didn't say who was in the picture. And I said, oh, for sure everybody will know who it is.
I guess.
Then,
Yeah.
I mean, some of you
Hi,
will remember each other
Rivka.
many years. Hi, Rivka. Hi, Mrs. You've got to remind me your name. I'm so sorry. Hannah Harel. Hi, Hannah, מה נשמע? את רואה, אני זוכרת גם השם הראשון, גם שם משפחה.
Chana Ariel.
So I was thinking, you know, today is a special day. Soon we're going to start. We'll wait a few more girls to come. And I said, you know, I wanted to share with everyone something personal with the Rebbe. And I said, I've got to find the picture that I have, me and the Rebbe and one of the babies. Because the pictures that we have with the Rebbe is where we are son Yossi, Hani, and Musi. By the time our Levi was born, it was already after that the Rebbe had a stroke. So we didn't have pictures of the Rebbe giving out dollars or nickels or books. So, you know, and I found that picture of me and I said, okay, I'll put it. And then I look at myself, I recognize myself, but and some people told me, I said, you know who it is? I said, I don't know, some lady and a rabbi. I said, first of all, this is the Rebbe, and this is me with my son getting $1 from the Rebbe for a blessing. It was actually in the Rebbe's house because it was the year that the Rebbetzin Chaimushka passed away. It was 1988.
A lot like Brochin there.
I look like Rochel in there.
Yeah.
No, you look good, except it's a different hairdo, but the face is the same. That's right.
Yeah,
right,
that
you
doesn't
get
have
right.
all those little wrinkles. It's okay. In the computer, you don't see it. Baruch Hashem, I remember when I was probably in my late 20s, I was speaking one time to a woman. We actually, to be honest, we went to the mikveh together, and she already had gray hair. So she tells me, Rochel, I earned every gray hair in my head. And I thought, like, why are you proud of your gray hair? I mean, I was probably 28 years old. I didn't have any gray hair then. I mean, maybe a few. And I didn't say anything, And then when we get older, whether we dye our hair or don't dye our hair, we earn the gray hair. It's wisdom, right?
I wish I would get them.
You wish what? It's good. We don't show our gray hair, but we
I would
earn it.
love to have gray hair. I don't.
You would love to have gray hair, yeah. Well, then your hairdresser will not make money, Mrs. Rogers, so you can't have gray hair.
Well, he makes enough money, believe me.
He makes enough money.
From being
So
blonde to being the color.
So I think we'll start.
I'm jet black.
Yeah, I think we'll start. Hello to everyone. I will have to put my glasses because I can't see as good.
Hello.
Yeah. All the things, although in the picture you think I look the same, but some things, and Emily and Cheryl and Jeanette and all and Susie and everybody who I see and I don't see. So we're gonna mute now, everyone. Actually, by my side I have the rabbi sitting here and helping me out with the technical stuff. You're recording it also, right?
Can't hear you, Rochel.
Can't
Rachel,
hear.
you muted yourself also, Rachel. Just unmute yourself.
I can't hear you.
Rachel, you're muted.
At the bottom of the page.
You can hear Rochel. She's not speaking yet.
Yeah,
Yeah, can
but-
you hear? Okay,
You're
yeah,
back.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'll
Thank you.
repeat.
Tada rava.
Very good, I'll
Alright.
repeat. So today is the 3rd of Tammuz, a very special date in the Jewish calendar. And we want to go back a little bit what happened on that day. We know what happened 26 years ago with the Rebbe on that day, but I want to go a little bit back and to understand a little bit of history. So 1271 BCE, when Yehoshua, after Moshe took over Moshe, when he was conquering the land of Israel, right? They went out of Egypt. And the whole idea was to leave Egypt is to come to Eretz Israel, to the land of Israel, to the redemption, to finish, to redeem the Eden and to come to the land. There was a war, as we know, and they were trying to go to get the land. And in one of the wars, it was on the 3rd of Tammuz, and the battle was going, and they needed a few more hours in the day to finish the battle. So they needed daylight. And what did Yehoshua say? Yehoshua said, Shemesh begivon dom, ve'yareach be'emek ayalon. To translate, Yehoshua said, Shemesh begivon, in the place Givon, Shemesh dom, stand, be quiet, don't move. And yareach, and the moon, stay in your place. You know, as we know how the sun and the moon, right, go with the world and so on. He said, stop, basically, and Hashem listened because the tzaddik said, and the sun stopped from setting for a few more hours till the Jewish people were able to win the war and get the place that they needed. So that was one special thing that happened many years ago, 1271 BCE, basically about 3,000 years ago. And it was a special light that the sun was longer on that day in order for them to win. Many years later, the previous Rebbe, Rebbe Yosef Yitzchak, the previous Rebbe, was arrested in Russia. And some of you maybe might know he was Rebbe for 30 years, and 10 of them he was in Russia. 10 he was in Russia, 10 he was in Poland, and 10 he was in America, in the United States. And the first 10 years, he was then when Stalin was in power. And he had very hard life, a lot. He had to, fighting to do yeshivot, to do all the things to teach. And it was very difficult. And he was arrested. And he physically suffered. The previous year was arrested 10 times. And he was beaten, as hard as it sounds. He was starved. He was really physically, when he came to America, he was on a wheelchair. He was not an old man then. He was young. He was 60. And he was already on a wheelchair from all the physical things, how he suffered when he was in jail. And they wanted basically to, I don't like to say to take his life away, because they knew that he was the life source behind all the underground yeshivot, underground mikvahs, everything that the Jewish people had in the Soviet Union. We had that as well. We can make perhaps a class for it on its own another time. I would love to do that. Actually, it would be nice to share how, I was 7 when I left Russia, but I still remember how my parents had underground yeshiva, everything underground, and the hakoach, the power, the strength that we had it started with the previous Rebbe, and then obviously the Rebbe. So they wanted, God forbid, to finish his life. Then on the 3rd of Tammuz, because they made the sentence, and then on the 3rd of Tammuz, they told him, okay, we're not gonna, God forbid, finish your life. The Soviets had a lot of pressure from the Western world, from United States, from Europe. They all told Russia, you cannot take away such a leader, a strong leader in the Jewish community in the world. So they had pressure, so they said, fine, not. But the 3rd of Tammuz, they said that they will send him to Kostroma, it's a city in Russia, he will be there in exile. And at the time, it seemed really sad, really scary. Basically, they're not gonna finish his life quickly, but they will send it for 3 years for exile, for so many suffering that he'll perish there, God forbid, on his own, the same way as many prisoners and many good people, Russian people, Jewish people, rabbis, many good people suffered and finished their life on their own, and the Rebbe's father as well. Rebbe Levi Yitzchak, the Rebbe's father, also passed away in 1954 on his own, and I mean, with his wife was there as well. Suffering also as a young man in his 60s. And the 3rd of Tammuz seemed like a sad day. In the end, it happened to be a happy day because they told him 3 years in Kasserma, and then a few days later, the 12th of Tammuz, that we're going to celebrating soon, today is the 3rd, in 9 days, they told him you're free. But you have to leave Russia. They didn't want him to stay in Russia, and he had to leave Russia, and he went to Poland. So here we have 3rd of Tammuz many years ago. What Yoshua did is stop the sun from setting, so the light continued longer. And then the previous Rebbe that was in jail, and it seemed like very sad. He'll be, 3 years in exile and suffering. And then in the end, it was a light. And we know what happened with us in our times, 26 years ago, that the 3rd of Tammuz really seems like it was darkness, because the Rebbe was taken away from us in a physical sense. But we do know that the Rebbe is with us, and we have to have a lot of emunah, a lot of faith, a lot of bitachon. But before we speak about it a little bit more, I would like to share some personal things from Calgary, as I wrote the Rebbe and our Calgary community, and to see the strength, how much, even though we think that really the 3rd of Tammuz, we lost so much, but how much strength the Rebbe still continues and is with us in a big way, much more than we were able to see and to experience the miracles and the Rebbe's guidance when the Rebbe was here, neshama beguf, a soul in a body. So I want to tell you one thing. Rebbe is an acronym, Rebbe, right? Resh Bet Yud, those of us who know Hebrew, which means Rosh Bnei Israel. Rebbe is Rosh Bnei Israel. Resh Bet Yud. What does Rosh Bnei Israel means? Rosh, a head. Harosh, the head. So a Rebbe, a tzaddik, in every generation we have a tzaddik, a Rebbe that is the head of the generation. What does it mean, the head of the generation? That we follow him, we follow what the Rebbe is teaching us? Obviously, but much more than that. What is a head? We have a body, but what is the head so special? Our brain. The Rebbe is the brain of the Jewish people. He is the Rosh of the Bnei Israel of the Jewish people. The same thing as a head feels the body. If, God forbid, your pinky hurts, something hurts in the hand, in this and that, why does it hurt? Because it's connected to the brain. It's connected to your head. If chas v'shalom, God forbid, when somebody, chas v'shalom, not when somebody ever had a stroke, should never happen to anybody, all of a sudden the person still has the legs and all the limbs, but the person doesn't feel. If there is no connection between the head to the body, then the person doesn't feel. And we are connected to the head. A healthy body is connected to the head, and this is what the Rebbe is. The Rebbe is Rosh Bnei Israel. The Rebbe feels everyone. I want to share with you something. We'll share some stories for us to understand a little bit more. How a head feels the body. The Rebbe is the big neshama, the soul that includes all the souls, and we are all connected to the Rebbe. The Rebbe feels us when we need something. Because many people say, well, the Rebbe never saw me, the Rebbe never knew me. How will the Rebbe know what to tell me? If I ask him for a blessing, I ask him what to do. How? The Rebbe never saw me. The Rebbe saw you. The Rebbe knew who you looked like. The Rebbe knew your family. The Rebbe didn't know me. No, the Rebbe did. The Rebbe does. Because we are all connected. In a spiritual sense, the Rebbe is the Rosh and we are the body. When we came to Calgary in 1988, in November 1988, we actually landed October 31st. And we used to go, obviously, from time to time to the Rebbe to visit New York. And I must say that it was very encouraging because it wasn't easy here in the beginning. We're not going to spend time on it now, but coming with 2 babies, not knowing anyone, not having any friends, having to make friends, not having the kosher food you need, being very, very cold, because we did come here from Palm Springs, I must say. I love the weather now, but then plus 17, I don't know why, but I was freezing. I remember I used to wear a coat because I was used to 120 Fahrenheit, and then I go to 65 Fahrenheit or to 50 Fahrenheit, it's freezing. So all those things were not easy. But obviously we would go to the Rebbe would give $1, the Rebbe would give a smile, the Rebbe would give a nickel to the kids. We would pass by holding both of our babies. The Rebbe would hold one, I would hold the other. As you saw the picture there, I was holding Yossi. And you can see on the picture the Rebbe smiling, and you saw how I was looking. It was like the moment of, I don't know even how to explain, that moment was like forever. You were able to feel the, in finite life, I would say that by Kadosh Baruch Hu, by Hashem, there isn't Haya, Hoveh, V'Atid is the same. We have creation is something that, time is something that God created. By Hashem, there isn't yesterday, today, it's all the same. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, it's all the same. For humans, it's very hard to understand. I remember when I would go, the few times that I went by and I got the $1 from the Rebbe or Lekach, before Rosh Hashanah, before Hoshana Rabbah, the Rebbe would give Lekach, say L'Shana Tova Metuka, a good Geben Shior, as he say Yor. You stood there and you didn't want to leave. That moment seemed like the Rebbe's piercing blue eyes looking in my face, and I looked at the Rebbe, and it felt like forever. Somebody had to push you from the back to leave, because why do you want to leave? It felt like so calming, so positive. Everything looked so good, so encouraging. I don't know, I can speak about it for a whole hour, how I felt. And sometimes I try to relive that moment again. It was amazing. And we used to have it from time to time. And I must say that it was very difficult. After the 3rd of Tammuz, we used to travel and we didn't have that physical thing. We had to work on it. Like now, we had to stand in 770 and look at the Rebbe's chair and imagine, and we know the Rebbe is there, the Rebbe is giving us guidance. But it was so much easier. And that's why we pray for Mashiach to come, because it was so much easier when the Rebbe actually stood there and gave in the hand his stuff and said the blessing. We were able to hear it personally in everybody's face. Now the Rebbe is still telling us personally, it just takes a little bit more effort to listen. So and to hear it, to listen and to hear, right? Like Hashem said, Na'aseh v'nishma, listen, do and listen with your ears, with your brain, with your heart. We have to listen, not just to hear, God said to do this. You have to listen, to absorb it. So one of the first times that we went, the Rebbe's secretary had asked my husband, Rabbi Groner, who passed away, before Pesach, the secretary, he asked my husband, he said, what's with our people, our friends that live in Alberta? And my husband said, what do you mean? What? Anyway, to make the long story short, he told him there is a lady that lives in Edmonton, very far place, in some low housing community, a young woman, she has a child, and we should go visit because the Rebbe wants us to go visit. It was amazing because we thought, here we are. I know we were young kids, 25, 26 years old. We were very ambitious. I know it was hard. It was cold here. It was lonely. But anyway, the Rebbe sent us. We're going to come here and we're going to bring the Rebbe's message to Alberta, to all the cities. We had then a choice to live between Calgary and Edmonton. We decided to, for many reasons, to come to Calgary. We can share it with you maybe some other time. And here we come to New York, and the Rebbe secretary is telling us we should go to Edmonton because there is a woman in Edmonton that is in touch with the Rebbe. Wow, that was like fascinating. Here we're thinking we're coming. The Rebbe doesn't need us. The Rebbe doesn't need anybody. He can get anywhere he wants on his own. He did us a favor that he gave us the opportunity to come and to be able to connect with all of you and to be able to teach and to learn from all of you and to grow together. So to make the long story short, we come to Edmonton. My husband goes to that place, low housing community. A young woman there, her name was Fruma. Her name is Fruma. She lives now in another place, not in Edmonton anymore. He walks to the house and he was shocked. He sees in the house a small picture of the Rebbe. So he right away knew that she is actually connected to the Rebbe because she has a picture of the Rebbe. And to make the long story short, she was a young 19-year-old, not when we met her, then she was already older, but she was a young 19-year-old girl that lived in one of the cities actually from Montreal. She grew up in a rabbinic family, very religious family. And for some reason, things were disturbing, things were difficult for her for whatever reason, and she ran away from home. And God knows she got to Edmonton and she married a non-Jewish man. She had a little boy. By the time we came, when we met her, she had the little boy was then probably 4 years old, but obviously she was already divorced. I guess it was abusive, whatever it is, she left. And here She didn't reach to her family. She reached to the Rebbe and she asked the Rebbe to help her. And here we came, and it was an amazing story. It was a long time. It took many years. And she wanted the boy to make a bris because he didn't have a bris. And the father said he'll disown if he'll make a bris. He doesn't allow him. And then, and the boy felt he said he never saw Jewish people besides his mother. We were the first Jewish people he saw. And we did Shabbat, and they used to come to Calgary all the time to our house for Shabbos, and then we made for him bar mitzvah and then so on. And then when he was 18 years old, he called his father and he said, I'm 18, I'm an adult, and I really want to make a bris. And his father said, well, I'm disowning you. I don't know if they're in touch now. He made a bris, he became frum, he married a doctor, he lives in Toronto, he has a beautiful family, happy and amazing. I told you the story very quickly. It took many years. It took a lot of effort. It was very hard. We used to write to the Rebbe all the time, what's going to be with this? And the father doesn't let. And the Rebbe said, Sof, sof, ihiyeh, didan notzach. It's in Aramaic. Didan notzach means the victory is ours. The Rebbe said, don't worry, try, but in the end, the victory will be ours, which means we understood that he'll make a bris. Well, by the time he grew up and he made the bris, I remember we were in our house in Woodlands at the time, and he called, and it was already after the 3rd of Tammuz, and we saw what the Rebbe said came true. We all said L'chaim, we were crying after he made the bris then, and it was amazing. This is one story with somebody in Calgary. I wanted to mention something else as well. When, again, when we moved here, we realized that before I go on, actually, I see someone else. I mean, many other people join us. I see Adina and Natalia and Sandra and all of you, and some names I see and I don't see, and I'm sorry. But one I want to mention is Nurit Berard. Her son just got married. Adis, I want to say Mazel Tov, was a beautiful chuppah, beautiful wedding. We couldn't all join. It was in the States, but I want to say Mazel Tov. So many of us know that there are books that are called Igrot Kodesh. Igrot Kodesh means letters, holy letters. What are those books? Many volumes. It's books that have the Rebbe's letters. The Rebbe wrote to people for many years. Some of them, I think, is before the Rebbe became even a Rebbe, right? Or from 1950. And letters the Rebbe wrote to many people, and there, if you go through, you'll find there are many letters that are written actually to my in-laws, to my father-in-law, to parents, to my grandparents, and so on. And now there's something that we'll discuss soon that people ask the Rebbe in them. But when we moved here and we opened up the Igrot Kodesh, we realized that there are 2 letters in Igrot Kodesh that the Rebbe wrote to people who lived in Calgary in the 60s, right? It was in the 60s and the 70s. 50s, 60s, like many years ago. And we were like, what? There were people that Rebbe already connected to Calgary before, maybe before even me and the Rebbe were born. And one of them I want to share with you what it was. It was to Yael Shapiro, Olav Shalom, who is here, the grandfather of many, many Calgarians. And what we see, he wrote to the Rebbe from the answer, you can see what the Rebbe answered him. He wrote to the Rebbe that every day Chassidut, he used to say Hasidic discourse. He used to teach Kabbalah, basically Hasidus, to the people in the shul. They would, people would daven. Those years, there were many people that came in Shabbos to shul. And we should start it again. Unfortunately, not so many now. I'm not speaking just about Corona, but altogether, even before Corona. And he said that he feels that when he gives the class and he's teaching, very few people understand him. People don't understand anymore deep concepts the way they understood in the old country. So you're writing to the Rebbe saying, Rebbe, should I continue? Because the people don't understand anyway. And you see the Rebbe answers him and he says, I know, you think they don't understand, but please continue, because their neshama understand. Their soul understands. Even though you think they don't understand, their soul understands. And that's why there is a thing of learning Torah, to listen to Torah. Many times you join a class or you listen to a class on Chabad.org and you think, well, I didn't understand everything. It's okay. You heard words of Torah, the Neshama understand. The spiritual thing affects us also to be more positive, to be more godly, to be more holy. And so it's amazing. So I wanted to share that with you. Another thing that I wanted to say as well is, and one of his great-granddaughter Susan Dworkin, who lives now in Tzfat in Eretz Yisrael, she published a book and she wrote different essays on Tanya, and she had used classes, she based it on classes that she learned when she was in Calgary with my husband. So look at the, the chain of reaction. Another thing also that I wanted to share quickly is, girls, with everyone, is a story that happened in Tasmania. Just to, one more thing to say how the Rebbe feels everyone, like we said, Rosh Bnei Yisrael Rebbe, and that's why we can connect to the Rebbe. One time someone wrote to the Rebbe, one time the Rebbe said years ago, the Rebbe told someone, it was before Pesach, he told him, take matzah and wine, and I want you to go to this town, very far in Tasmania, somewhere next to Australia, really, really far. It was years ago. He traveled, he came. It was a few weeks before Pesach, so he told him to take matzah. To make the long story short, he comes, he says, are there any Jews here? Because the Rebbe didn't tell him what to do. It was not very common, but it happened that the Rebbe would tell someone, go there, and the Rebbe didn't say what to do. They understood that there's a reason. So he went there and he went from pub to pub, from restaurant to restaurant, from one gas station to another. They said, Jews don't live here. Rabbi, I'm sorry, I don't know why you came here. But he knew that the Rebbe never made mistakes. And if the Rebbe said, it has to be true. He just needs more effort to find out the truth in the Rebbe's mission. And then finally, he was almost giving up. Somebody told him, in that restaurant, in that end of town, one of the waiters, I think he's a Jewish man. So he was so happy he went. He came there and he made himself like he's going to buy something. He wouldn't buy the food. He thought he'll get a drink. He was standing. And all of a sudden, he sees a person looking at him and starting to feel very uncomfortable and almost fainting, So then he says, are you Jewish by any chance? He said, yes, I am. Who sent you here? What did you come here for? Girls, to make the long story short, it's amazing. It's amazing to see how the Rebbe felt. The man told him that he lives already in this island, in this little town, many years. And he has very good friends. He has no family, no wife, no cousin, no kids, no one. And everybody told him, we're all Christian here. Come to church with us. Convert. You're Jewish. You have nobody. God will forgive you. Come to our God, and all the things. And he said, no, I'm a Jew. How can I go to church? I can't. And then they put on him a lot of pressure. And then he says, I'm getting older. I have no one. I don't want to be alone. One night I said to God, God, if you want me to be Jewish, you want me to continue to be a Yid, send me a sign. I'm giving you 14 days to give me a sign. I'm getting goosebumps, even though I heard the story many, many times. And if you will send me a sign, I'll know you want me to be Jewish. And if not, I'm going to go to church. Today is the 14th day. And it was getting dark. And I was thinking, boy, I made a promise to God. I knew that tomorrow I'm going to have an appointment with the priest. And I didn't know, how can I do it? And all of a sudden I see you. How did you know to come? How did you know today was the 14th day? Obviously, the man told him it's not me. And he told him that there's a Rebbe that lives in New York, very, very far. And to make the long story short, he encouraged him. He helped him move from that town to move to the city, to join other Yidden. And he brought him matzah and one for Pesach, and so on and so forth. Before the class, I want to tell you, I have also somebody in the class that might share with us soon an inspiring story from her life, somebody here in Calgary. But Susie Deal, who is also on our class now here, 2 minutes before the class, she shared with me a very inspiring story. She listens to Sivan Rahav, always a lady from Israel, for classes and inspirational talks and so on. And today, that Sivan had shared something about the Rebbe. Obviously, the whole world knows today is the 3rd of Tammuz, a very special day. And she shared a story that Rabbi Ashkenazi from Israel wrote. I forgot the name of the book, but she mentioned to me. But stories about things that happened to me with the Rebbe, like people had shared. Quite a few years ago, was obviously before the 3rd of Tammuz, a few women were traveling. It was a Friday afternoon, and they got stuck, as we say in Hebrew, they got stuck in Detroit airport. And they couldn't continue traveling because If they would continue traveling, the flight was delayed, it would be Shabbos. And they can't travel, chas v'shalom, on Shabbos. So they called the Rebbe's office. That's what they always used to do. I remember when I was in labor with my first baby with Hani, and things were going a little bit slow. And the first thing you do, you call the Rebbe's office. And my husband called the Rebbe's secretary. My wife is in labor, and so on and so forth. And a half hour later, Baruch Hashem, Hani was born. Thank God that we got through, and he went into the Rebbe to say my name and my mother's name and ask for a blessing for a quick delivery and healthy one. So those women called the Rebbe's secretary, the Rebbe's office, and they said, it's Friday afternoon, we are stuck in Detroit. And listen what the Rebbe answered. How amazing, how positive, how prophetic, how inspirational. The Rebbe said, you are not stuck. No Jew is ever stuck. Hashem never makes anyone get stuck somewhere. If you are in Detroit now in the airport, that means that you have a mission to do. And this the Rebbe didn't say, but we have the choice to stay stuck and cry and be upset about it and do nothing with it. And we have the choice to do something. So basically the Rebbe told him, you have a mission to do something in Detroit. That's what the Hashem brought you there. You're not stuck. So what did they do? As Lubavitch women always, when we travel, the men, they have the tefillin, right? They put tefillin on people. We always travel, especially if it's on Friday. We have neshek, nerot, Shabbat, kodesh. We have pamphlets of candles and this. And they went around in the airport and they found many Jewish people and they gave them and they said, today's Friday, you have to light candles and so on. How do we know about that story? Because years later, that Sivan that gave today that talk, she said that one of the ladies met her once and she told her, you know, what happened many years ago, those women were stuck there and so on and so forth. And they gave the candles to my mother. And my mother started lighting Shabbos candles since that Friday. How amazing is that? So many times we come to a place and we think, why? Why did we miss the plane? Why did we miss the car? Why are we in the red light? Somebody's looking at us. Well, let's smile. Could be that I'm sitting in the red light instead of being grouchy and angry that I missed the red light. I'm going to be in the red light. I'm going to be late to my appointment. I'm going to be late at home. I'm going to be this. Let's say something special. Let's say a prayer that I know by heart. Let's say Shema Yisrael. Let's say Modeh. Let's say Tehillim. Let me smile. Somebody who sits around and sees I look like a Jewish woman, a Jewish person. They see that I'm happy, that I'm positive. You never know. This is something so inspirational. We have so many stories like that that we get from the Rebbe. We never get stuck. Thank you, Susie, for sharing with us the story. This is amazing. What we want to do is, I want for a few minutes, we're going to ask someone that is a friend with us many years ago, many years. Actually, we met 26 years ago, a short time after the 3rd of Tammuz, after, I never like to use the word lost the Rebbe, because we never lost the Rebbe. We didn't lose the Rebbe. We gained the Rebbe so much more. We have so much more of the Rebbe's guidance, the Rebbe's power, the Rebbe's inspiration. Who thought that 26 years later, Chabad will grow so much? Never mind Chabad. Chabad means the Yiddishkeit in the whole world. So many more people are becoming closer. So many of us are learning so much. And a friend of Lily, which I want to mention her name, that she needs a blessing. I spoke with her actually yesterday, Iris. So we're going to say a blessing for Iris Bat Esther. She unfortunately suffered a hard accident last year. She was just crossing the street in Tel Aviv, and a young woman didn't notice her. And she ran her over, and it's a miracle that she's alive. She needs a lot of physical therapy, but emotionally it's very hard for her still. And she called me, she says, I know it's the 3rd of Tammuz, Rochel, daven for me. And whoever knows me, tell them they should daven for Iris Bat Esther. And Leah Rosenberg was the friend that Iris brought to us. And she said, Iris, Leah then knew that Reverend, your mother came to you in a dream, and she told Leah, you have to light candles in the shul, and she came, she was lighting candles, right? Yeah, so Lily, you will share with us. Lily, I know you have a very long story. Maybe let's share like one of them a little bit, and then we'll stop, and perhaps we'll have time for more. And maybe if all of us decide, we might want to continue this, because I want to share also, have many stories with my parents when they were still in Russia, when they came out of Russia, my father, personal stories with the Rebbe, with ourselves, which will be nice to see because we want to see how the Rebbe is alive with us, how people can write to the Rebbe and so on. So we're gonna, I think, Leah, you're unmuted. And with everybody's permission, we're gonna have Leah Rosenberg share some of her stories that she had with the Rebbe after the 3rd of Tammuz when she wrote in the Rebbe's books.
I have to mute myself?
No, we can hear you. Don't. You are already unmuted, so that's good. You
Okay.
can go.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I feel very honored to tell that story because it changed my life. So it started with this friend Iris that wanted a ride to Chabad because she didn't have a car. And I said, what's Chabad? That's how much I knew about religion. And she told me, oh, it's a very nice place. I like going there. They have good chulent on Shabbat. So the whole idea was that I'm going there to give her a ride. So she went in, and prior to that, on a very regular basis, my mom would come to my dreams and ask me to go to a shul and to light oil, not candles, oil. And
It's the Sephardic custom, right? Sephardic
it's
custom.
a Sephardic custom, yeah. When
Okay.
you want to to say thank you, and when you're grateful about things going better than you thought they would, the custom of my mom was to go to shul and light oil. So she kept coming night after night, say, go light oil. I didn't know what to do with this, really. I don't know shuls. I don't know what to do. So when Iris came out from Rabbi Matusof, I said to him, Rabbi, do you have some time? I have a question. And he said, no, I don't have time, but I'll make time. I still remember. Right away, that appealed to me, that he was like so receiving and accepting. So I told him about the dream. He didn't say anything. He was listening. And I said, I thought, why are you talking to a rabbi about your dreams? That seemed a little strange, but it turned out that was the period where Chabad was lighting oil for a year for the memory of the Rebbe. So Rabbi Matusof says, oh, okay, you have a choice. You can go home, light your oil, or you can come here every Friday and light the oil that I'm supposed to do. So for the memory of the Rebbe. I didn't know who the Rebbe was even. I just heard about it. So he says, go home, think about it, and tell me what you want to do. So I decided to come every Friday and change the oil and light the oil in the memory of the Rebbe. And this is how my life started to change, because every Friday when I was lighting the oil, it was an experience that's why it's hard for me to tell that story. It's like you, when you saw the Rebbe, I was feeling very peaceful and feeling some kind of energy around me that eventually I would cry. I started to cry, and not knowing what is this all about, but just feeling that there is something that's happening every Friday. So in one of those Fridays, I already knew. I knew that I came home. This is where my home is. And I'm trying to make the story short because it is a long story.
Well, that's good. You can say some, and then maybe next week we'll decide to continue those. Maybe well, if there is
So
permission.
the way it continued is that I started going to Chabad. I started being interested in religion. I started feeling connected, reading about the Rebbe, feeling connected. And after a few years of doing that, I told Rabbi Menachem that I want to write a letter to the Rebbe for in that book that you mentioned, Rochel, Igot Kodesh, because I was on my own already for 15 years. My kids were grown up, and going every Shabbat to Rochel and Matusof, I felt like I feel very lonely. So I wanted to write to the Rebbe to ask for a bracha to find a person that will be suitable for me. So I wrote the letter and we put it in Igrot Kodesh. And the answers were just like, here is your question, here is your answer. The Rebbe answered that I have to, first of all, be the light for my family because my family was not religious, and it was difficult to sort of all of a sudden being different. And then he also suggested I give tzedakah. And the third thing he suggests is that I go and study more Torah. For me, it was like, okay, I can give tzedakah, but what is that study more Torah? I was already studying with Rabbi Matusof maybe twice a week. So Rabbi Matusof say, well, go to House of Jacob. They're teaching Torah. Go there. If the Rebbe says, I would listen. So I didn't really want to go. But again, I thought, the Rebbe is asking me to do something, I'll go. I went to the House of Jacob for a Torah class. The rest is history because I met Herb.
The first time you went to the class, right?
The first time.
The first time.
There was like, he looked at me, I looked at him, nothing happened. We met again in a social event, and that's when we had a date to go out. And 6 months later, I was married to Herb.
I was it too.
And that's why I was so happy that I did write to the Rebbe and I did listen. And there is a continuing to it, but I'll stop here. And if you want me to tell you what things happen more, I will be happy to.
We would love to. Mariana said something. We would love to, either today or another time, because Lily it was amazing. Somebody wants to say something, or you want me to explain what it means that she wrote? I'll explain maybe in the Grot Kodesh a little bit what happened. The letter, obviously, it wasn't written just for Leah, because that letter was written many years ago. And as we said, it was already after the 3rd of Tammuz. But the way it goes is, the way we do it, and we started doing it, how did it happen? After the 3rd of Tammuz, just to explain, we were lost. Because, right? And how are we going to ask the Rebbe now? How are we going to ask for blessings? What are we going to do? And we remembered, it was always it was an ancient Jewish custom that whenever someone didn't know what to do, they would open up the Torah, because it says that the whole world, the whole light of the world, everything's in the Torah. So many times when people didn't know what to do, they will open up the Chumash, they will open the Torah to see, and they will open the page and it would give them. There were stories that somebody someone came to a Rebbe, I think it was in Poland, and they knew a woman was giving birth and she was having a hard time, and they wanted to save her, and there were no phones, and the guy ran quickly a few hours to the place to say that his friend's wife is, and he knew her name, and the tzaddik, the Rebbe asked, what's her mother's name? As we know, we always have to say our name and our mother's name, because we are Jewish by our mother. So and he says he didn't remember. By the time he'll go back and so on, he says he'll ask, he'll come back. That tzaddik, that righteous person, opened up the Torah, the Chumash, and it opened up to the page when the Rebbe, where the Torah speaks about our matriarch Rivka. So he took it as a sign that the lady's mother was Rivka, and he prayed for her, and everything was okay. And then that person came back and he said, oh, the Rebbe, the lady had a baby, everything was okay, but I still came to tell you that her mother's name is Rivka. He said, yeah, I knew. He says, how did you know? And he told him what he did. So it was a known thing that, we have to be worthy of it. It's not hocus pocus that you open and you get your answers. You have to believe in it and so on, obviously. And that's what and people started doing it. They ask the Rebbe questions, and we do it all the time. And you open up, and the letter can be written in 1950 to someone, in 1970 to someone, whatever it is. When Leah, that shared with us, Lily opened up the letter. She wrote to the Rebbe. She wants to meet a Jewish man. She wants to get married, and so on. There was a letter that was written to someone years ago that they asked the Rebbe for something, and the Rebbe told them that they have to be the light in the house. They have to teach everyone. They have to be the positive, right, thing in the house. They have to give tzedakah, and they have to study more Torah. So Leah said, I already studied classes with you. So Rabbi Matusof told her, I know you're studying, but if Rebbe tells you to study, that means you have to study more. And she couldn't come to more classes in Chabad because she was working those nights. And the one night that she had off was a class that was given by Rabbi Bainu, right? At the time, I think, in House of Jacob. So he told her to go. As she said, she didn't feel like going, but the Rebbe knew that she'll go to a Torah class and she'll meet him there. But the Rebbe wrote that letter to some other person years ago. And now Lily needs to meet her Bashert, and she opens the book at that page, and the Rebbe tells her, it's not coincidence, it's very hard for us to fathom, but it's amazing. It's a miracle, right? And there were many more stories that happened there that, as Leah said, she might share with us another time, maybe today, because I want to see if somebody else wants to share something, how the Rebbe answered, what to do and how to do, and the letter was written to someone else. I know many people that wanted, when they wanted to get married, as far as I know, it was with Rochel and Zalmi, right? Who went to the Rebbe's place, to the Ohel, and his father wrote to the Rebbe a blessing. He says, my son wants to get engaged to Rochel, Matusof, whatever, the father and everything. And he opens a book, and over there's a letter that the Rebbe is writing to somebody, that the Rebbe is telling him Mazel Tov for the engagement of your child. Well, that's what he wants. My niece wanted, my nephew actually, who married my niece, I have two nephews, Zaltzman, who married two nieces, Matusofs. And one of them, the older one, my sister-in-law told me, sister-in-law Zaltzman from Toronto, they didn't know who their son should go out with. There were a few names that were given to them they didn't know, and they wrote to the Rebbe a question, which girls should their son go out with? They're all nice girls, nice families, and they don't know. We can't go out right away with so many girls, which one? And they open up, and over there, the letter that is written to my father-in-law many years ago in Morocco. And he says Matusof. So it was very obvious for her that the girl that he has to go out with has to be Matusof, because they opened up, and it's not hocus pocus, obviously, because there's so many, but we have to believe in it. When we believe in it, the Rebbe is guiding us. The Rebbe is with us. The Rebbe is the head. The Rebbe is with us. The Rebbe gives us inspiration. And today is the day, the 3rd of Tammuz, that in a way we can think that the Rebbe it seems to us like the Rebbe is concealed. But the light doesn't stop, as we said with Yehoshua, as we said with the previous Rebbe. This day has a lot of light. Unfortunately, the concealment still continues to a certain extent, but we know that the 3rd of Tammuz has a lot of potential that Moshiach should come, that the redemption should come. We have to open up our eyes. We have to have the belief. We have to connect to the Rebbe. How do we connect to the Rebbe? We learn the Rebbe's Torah. We learn what the Rebbe wants. We love each other. We do acts of goodness and kindness. The last book, the last mimer, the last Hasidic discourse the Rebbe gave, the Rebbe spoke and gave to Chassidim to learn was Ve'ata Tetzaveh. Ve'ata Tetzaveh is it's a parsha in the Torah that Hashem speaks to Moshe, ve'ata, and you should command and so on. It speaks a lot about Ahavat Israel. And we take it like that was the Rebbe's will, if you want to call it so. To love each other, to be together, to be united, to concentrate on all the things that unite us, not the things that differ us. We all look different, we all this, but we all have one Father. We all have one parent, God, right? We all together as one. And we have to be able to look at each other beyond our faces, our physical looks, our soul. And our soul, who knows? All of you have very special souls, and we don't know who has a higher soul than someone else. It doesn't mean somebody who is very religious has a better soul than someone else. No, we all have special souls. We don't know what soul we have, and that's what we have to do good. We have to feed it. How do we feed our soul? How do we make our soul grow? When we do mitzvot. Our body needs physical food. Our soul needs, like a candle, needs the light, needs the Torah, needs the mitzvot. Somebody wants to share something else, or we'll hear another story maybe from another incident, because Leah wrote to the Rebbe many times. Somebody wants to share something else, or to share something, not something else, to share something about the Rebbe that they had? So I'll share something else, perhaps, and then maybe we'll have a few minutes if we want Leah to share another story. When my parents left Russia in 1971, we came to Israel. And 3 weeks later, it was in August, I think, 3 weeks later was Rosh Hashanah. And my father and my oldest brother, the one who is the rabbi now in Toronto, the Russian Jewish Center, Rabbi Zaltzman, he was then a 15-year-old. They went together to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe gave my father a lot of attention and so on. It was amazing. My father then was a young man of 35 years old and told us many things, you know. The Rebbe showed him lots of love and attention and inspiration for everything that my parents were doing in Russia with all the, you know, underground and so on. And people those years used to go to Yechidut. Yechidut means Yachid, like unique, one-on-one. People used to go to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe would talk to them and so on. Later on, it stopped for many reasons. And like when me and my husband got married 30, 40 years ago, we went into the Rebbe, but we were able to go. It was called Yechidut Klali. There were many people that came in, and the Rebbe gave all of us a blessing because we all got married in the next week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, whatever it was, and the Rebbe gave everybody a blessing and so on. It was called Yechidut Klali. But till then, when a lady before birth, she was able to go into the Rebbe to ask for a blessing. People went in to ask for the Rebbe for a blessing for their birthday, bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, weddings, or just people that came from far countries and so on would come to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe would sit late nights from, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night till 4 or 5 a.m. And person after person would go to the Rebbe and speak. Hours it took. I mean, people would be with the Rebbe a minute or 2 or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, depends. It was very rare that people stayed for a long time. And people said, everybody, people who came in at 4 a.m. didn't feel any difference, that the Rebbe was tired. The Rebbe was already an elderly man, that it was hard for the Rebbe, nothing. They felt the Rebbe was just as alert and just as interested to listen to them, to hear them out the same way as the men who walked in at 10 o'clock in the evening when it just started, let's say, and somebody walked in at 4 a.m. Before I continue with my father, I wanted to mention a story that happened, and maybe some of you read it. An elderly woman was standing one of the Sundays, as we know, that the Rebbe was giving dollars for charity, dollars for tzedakah, and that's the picture that I shared, as you saw on WhatsApp, or on when I went by the Rebbe with our son, who is turning soon 32, Ad Me'ah V'Esrim, in 9 days actually, and so an older lady was standing by, and the lines were horrendous because everybody used to come to get dollars. Lubavitchers, not Lubavitchers, Hasidim, all kind of Jewish people, not Jewish people, black, white, everybody would go, and the Rebbe would give guidance and smile to everyone. And it was amazing how the Rebbe remembered people that were there 5 years ago, and they would come, and the Rebbe would mention to them something the Rebbe told them 5 years ago. They were shocked, like, how did you recognize me? I changed. I was 12 years old then, now I'm 17, now I'm 18, I was 20, now I'm 30. It's amazing, the stories and the only reason we know the stories because people shared them. Obviously, the Rebbe didn't share why I remembered you, I remembered you. There's things that the Rebbe said. And the lines were very, very long, and the Rebbe would stand hours and hours and give dollars, and and answer and so on. So the lady stood for a long time. When she came to the Rebbe, she thanked the Rebbe for the dollar, and she told the Rebbe, you know, I stood for 2 hours, and I'm so tired, and you are older than me. How are you standing for so many hours on your feet? And just imagine people just go like this with the hand. Try to do like this with the hand. It was quick with the dollars usually. People didn't stop for a long time. For 5 minutes. You know, 80. The Rebbe was in his late 80s. The Rebbe was, and he was just standing and doing it 6, 7 hours on his feet. The whole time. It didn't show any, it's like an angel. It's hard to understand the power, the spiritual powers that the Rebbe had. So the Rebbe smiled, and the Rebbe told her, when you count diamonds, you don't get tired. Isn't that profound?
Yeah.
Somebody is schlepping a bag, a sack, and it has, his work is to take earth, to take stones from one place to another. When you carry, you know, stones, and it's heavy, doing this a job, you get paid per hour, it's heavy. But if you count, if you were carrying the same weight, but you know it's diamonds, you don't feel because you're so excited. The Rebbe told her, when you count diamonds, because every yid, every person that will pass by the Rebbe saw us as a diamond. The Rebbe connected to us. Rebbe, Rosh Bnei Israel, the head. And as the Rebbe said, I didn't get tired. When my father came in, he told us he stayed then with the Rebbe the first time for 45 minutes, which was very, very rare, very long. Very few people will have that, like, we have a few more minutes, we have to finish. Just looking at the Tikkalan, prime ministers of Israel would stay long, different doctors, and the Rebbe wanted to know everything. How it was in Russia, and all other people that stayed behind the Iron Curtain, and how it was hard, and he wanted to know everything, and he wanted to know about my family and so on. So when my father came, he also had a letter that my mother, Allah Shalom, wrote, and she gave it to my father, Zozan Gesund. Actually, we're celebrating soon his 86th birthday, Zozan Gesund, also in the month of Tammuz, 28th of Tammuz. And he brought with him a letter because my mother stayed with us in Israel, we couldn't all travel, and he gave the letter. My mother wrote a letter of 10 pages. She wrote it in Russian. Obviously, that was the language that was easy for her. I mean, we know, obviously, the Rebbe knew Russian. It was from Russia, but the Rebbe spoke and read, as far as I know, at least 9 languages. He was brilliant. As a child, he learned languages from a dictionary. How easy it is to learn a language from a dictionary, but the Rebbe was, he was very, 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 very talented. And my father said that my mother, Allah Shalom's handwriting was difficult to read. You know, some people have an easy handwriting. He said it was hard. You had to know. And he was amazed because the Rebbe took I know it's hard for you to see me, I'll do it this way. You have the papers, you take, and he just took one paper after another. He just like glanced through it. He looked at the paper and he just like, you know, went through one after another. Then he put the papers on the table and he started answering my father everything my mother asked. My father said he stood there. He didn't know then much about the Rebbe. No, there was a tzaddik. I mean, we grew up with it in Russia. This was a life and so on. He was like in his own eyes. He saw such a miracle. He said, even if you can read quickly, how can you read so quickly? You can't. You know, the Rebbe looked at it. The Rebbe didn't need the letter to read. He knew what was in my mother's heart. He connected to my mother's heart, and he answered everything that she needed. I want to say l'chaim. It's Gimmel Tammuz. It is 9 o'clock. Leah, I did want to hear more. Girls, I do want to share with you more. But 9 o'clock every evening, we have a staff meeting. All our rabbis and Rebbetzins get together on Zoom and we meet. Because that's social distancing and that's how we meet and we discuss everything that we have to do in Chabad house and how things went and we get ideas and so on. So some of you that have a little wine, you can take or you can do later. I'll say a bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam be'er pri hagafen.
Amen.
I want to say a bracha l'chaim that all of us should take strength from this day to have energy to be positive like the Rebbe was, to have energy to be a leader like the Rebbe was. As we know, the Rabbi Jonathan Sachs said, usually you think, who is a leader? A leader is someone who has a lot of followers. A real leader is who creates leaders. And that's what the Rebbe did. The Rebbe created thousands of leaders, not just Chabad rabbis and Rebbetzin, but all of us. The Rebbe gave us that thing. You don't get stuck. If you get stuck, there is a reason. You don't get stuck. From everything you have to learn. From everything you have to take something positive. You have to smile. You have to be happy. You have to look. If something happened, look for the positive for tomorrow. Be grateful. Every day is a new day. And we should have the energy to do good. Now, I would like to see if some of you want to write to the Rebbe, want to understand more. What does it mean to write to the Rebbe? With everybody's permission, maybe we want to continue next week to discuss more on that topic, to understand a little bit more and see who else wants.
Yes.
Yes, all of you, if you want that, perhaps we can do more just to understand more this.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah?
Yes,
Okay, so we'll continue more. We'll be able to do more. I would like to share with you also more, and I know it's already 9:02, I think, from our own life, when we met with the Rebbe, things that we wrote to the Rebbe about our children, prophetic things, and for people in the community, and to see how some of you here, all of us, that we want to connect, how we can connect, and how we can do, and those things, how important they are to connect to Moshe Rabbeinu. As we know that when the Jewish people went out of Mitzrayim, it says, "Vayaminu b'Hashem ube Moshe avdo." They believed in Hashem and Moshe, his servant. So to be good Yidden, we need the tzaddikim in every generation that Hashem gave us to connect better to Hashem, to connect, to do what we are supposed to do. The Rebbe is helping us. And the Rebbe is alive with us. The Rebbe is with us. The Rebbe is giving us strength. Good night. L'chaim. And it should be really, thank you all for joining. I didn't
night,
say
thanks.
personal. My pleasure. I didn't say personal hello to everyone, but you can always write to me, you know, and comments and so on. And God willing, we should have a wonderful week. And next week, we'll discuss more. And I hope all of you will be able to share what a wonderful week you had and a positive week and only blessings. Thank you. Good night and Shabbat Shalom. Amen. Moshiach now, Moshiach now, Moshiach now. And I'm sure all of us will light candles tomorrow night and pray for the whole world. For peace, prosperity, and godliness. Moshiach now. Thank you,
Good
girls.
night.
Thank you. Good night. Good night.
Good evening to everyone.
Amen. Thank you. And Mazel Tov again.
Thank
Hilda.
you so much. Thank
And
you
Mazel
so
Tov,
much.
Nurit. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you. So hard to leave. Just want to stay. So we are going